First of all, I would just like to say thank you for coming along today to learn more about what your daughter is doing in mathematics class and the reason why we are doing things slightly differently this year. It's really important that we're all on the same page because at the end of the day, we're all about supporting students' learning, and it is a partnership, and we really appreciate that you are supporting what we are doing in class to make sure that she has the most success that she can have. In maths class, we run a 2-week cycle. The first lesson of every cycle starts with feedback from the previous test. Now, obviously, being the beginning of a new term, all the feedback was done at the end of last term. So we've started back with some modules and some mini lessons. Being a short week 2 in week 1, we're not doing a rich task, so we're doing some modules and then some mini lessons. This will be 4 of the 8 lessons in a normal cycle. One of those will be the test. And then the next lesson after the test, students have early access modules that they can go on with, and the teacher sits with each individual student, goes through the modules that they didn't master on their test as well as the ones they did master, makes a plan and sets a goal for the cycle going forward, and then they go on and start modules for their next cycle. Now, we have 4 tests over a term. We'll have 2 rich tasks this term, and we will be doing 1 project. The project at this stage is looking to be in week 4, so the girls will have a project that they'll work on, which will be some work from a workbook that they'll be given, and they will do that whilst they'll have NAPLAN obviously in week 4. We'll monitor how they go with that, and then we will look at completing that in week 5. For each of these tests, they are on the modules that the girls have been working at. So each of the individual tests, or each of the tests is individual for the girls. It is on the content that they are learning. So whatever they have been working on in the last cycle is what will go on their test. There are 2 parts to the test. The first is an online part with some online questions. They still need to use pen and paper when working out the answers to these online questions, and then they will submit those. When they're done, they will obviously then work on the printed part of their test. Now, some students, depending on how much work they've done in the last cycle, whether they have been at every lesson and got the same amount of work, there is an expectation that the girls will complete 4 modules over each cycle, but depending on the topics, whether or not they're having a second try at that topic, or whether they are learning some new topics, will depend on actually how many modules that they got completed in the cycle. So whilst we try and get most girls to do 4 modules over a cycle, and at this point I probably should clarify what we mean by modules. Modules are the fancy name that we give or that we use with the girls. It actually is the key mathematical concepts. So the curriculum is broken down into a series of key mathematical concepts that obviously build on one another. So some concepts you need a certain mastery of prior knowledge before you can go on to them, but the modules really are what we're talking about there, are the key mathematical concepts that the girls are learning, that they're working on, that they're revising. A lot of the time in term 1 we found that the girls may have had quite a good understanding of most of that key mathematical concept, but they were still trying to understand the concept more than just the process, and therefore that led to a few little mistakes in their tests or that happened from the diagnostic, and we have been filling those gaps that they had going forward. This is also why sometimes the girls may have said, oh, this is too easy, or I've done this before. It probably is something that they've done before, but they hadn't got to that point of mastery, which is what we want them to do. Often if they have a look at a key mathematical concept and they understand most of it, but they don't understand the whole thing, then that leads to a misconception that they carry forward that then can actually hinder them doing the next key mathematical concept in the next level. So we've been addressing those and making sure that all the girls have a really good foundation with that. The whole reason that we are doing maths using this and these cycles and these mini lessons is for each individual student, we want them to have an opportunity to get a really strong foundation in maths. So if they've come from their primary school years and have some gaps in their learning, we're trying to really look at strengthening their understanding and making sure that they have a strong foundation, because we find that if we don't do that now, By the time that they get to year 10 and year 11 and are starting to make choices in their higher years and higher levels of mathematics, that these gaps then become quite prominent, and we don't feel that they have the success that they should have because these gaps were never filled. Because obviously we were just pushing forward with the curriculum. Here now we take the opportunity to revise over anything that they do have misconceptions before we push forward and learn the next thing. So what is your daughter working on? Obviously, to support your daughter, you need to have an understanding of what she's doing. So you can see that by having a look at what we call her dashboard. You can see there that they are a list of the key mathematical concepts along the bottom that your daughter has been doing in this cycle. Now, these key concepts, sometimes she gets to choose what she wants to do from everything that is open. Sometimes we ask the students to do the recommended ones, and often the recommended ones may be a key concept or a key misunderstanding from her primary school years. So we ask her to do that just so we can see if that is just a little gap or if it is something that needs more addressing. And in that case, when she is in a mini lesson, it will be addressed then. When she is on her learning map, if you want to see what she's done in each cycle, you can click back and have a look. The easiest way as a parent, though, to really see what your daughter is doing is up on the top right-hand corner. There is a Parents button that you can press and log in. Your daughter has a login. You will be given the same today when you meet with your daughter's teacher. You will also be given that login so that you can access this website. Find your daughter's name, click on your daughter's name, put the password in that you see there, and then you'll be taken to this dashboard. From here, you then click on that button at the top that says Parents. And when you do that, you will have a look at some things at the back end. Now, one of the things is you'll see the progress in the test cycles, so the effort, the accuracy, and the growth. But what is more important and what is more useful for you in being able to help your daughter is a list of the key mathematical concepts. With the girls, we call them modules, but they're the key mathematical concepts that she has been working on. Now you can see what she has mastered, so the things that she's been tested on in each of the cycles we've done so far and what she's shown mastery of. The things that she's yet to show mastery of, so she's having a second or a third go at that. And anything that is green is what's on her current timeline. So that is what is going to be on the next test that she is to sit. What should my daughter be doing for homework? Well, as per the college policy, all girls should be doing 10 minutes a night, 4 nights a week, working on these key concepts or revising for their test. Now, here are 2 examples of work that you can see in their book. On the left-hand side, you can see an example of good setting out and good working. The girls marking their own questions from the system. All the answers are in there so they can go and mark their own work. You can see by just looking at this page that this girl seems to have a good understanding of the addition and subtraction of fractions here. On the right hand side is an example of a girl that has been listing some key concepts for revision. She has gone through and looked at all the modules that she's going to be tested on and written down some key ideas and key processes that she needs to do to be able to master those modules in her test. So, what does testing involve? Well, each girl is given an individualised test. This is made up of questions that they have from the modules that they've been working on in the current cycle. The test is made up of 2 parts, some online questions and some print questions. They complete the online questions, though they still do use pen and paper to work those out, though the answers are submitted online. And once they've done that and answered all of those questions, then they go ahead and complete the print questions that have been given to them as well, ask them to check and hand that into their teacher. It's completed under test conditions in class, so no notes, by themselves in a quiet environment. However, we don't have a time limit on how long they get to answer those questions. And the reason being is at this point we are more concerned with what the girls can and can't do rather than the time limit in which they can do it, because we're about creating a strong foundation in these girls, filling any gaps, extending those who are ready to be extended, and making sure that everyone has the best foundation that they can have going forward. When they get after their test is marked, so then the print questions are collected up, after their test is marked, when they do their reflection, the next lesson when they get their test back to do the reflection, any of the online questions that they got wrong, they get an opportunity to reattempt those. So it asks them if they, shows them which one they didn't get correct and asks them if they wanted to check their answer or change their answer. And that way, if there is any silly mistakes, they typed in a number incorrectly or they read it wrong, any of those things which actually aren't affecting their mastery, it was just a silly error that happened, can be fixed and adjusted, and then we can make sure that we have the best information that we can on those girls. So we've talked a little bit about effort, accuracy and growth, and as I said before, when you log into the parent portal, you'll be able to see those three bits of information on your girls. The effort comes from a percentage of how many of the assigned modules they completed over the 2-week cycle. So our default number of modules is 4. Each of the year levels have been set up so that in a 2-week cycle, if you are completing and mastering 3 modules, you're on track to do a year's worth of work and a year's worth of curriculum in that year. Now, obviously, if we are looking at filling some of the gaps with girls, which we have done a lot of in term 1, but there still may be a couple of things that need addressing, we are having a default of 4 modules over a cycle. It doesn't mean that this will be the case for all girls. Some girls are really only capable of learning 2 new key mathematical concepts in a cycle, and some of them are pushing ahead to 6 or 8. This is something that they decide with their teacher, so their teacher obviously will look at their data, have a look at how well they're doing, and make sure that they are coping with that amount of key concepts every cycle, making sure that they've got their mastery there before giving them any bonus modules in that cycle. Their accuracy is how many modules are mastered in the test. So if they've done 4 modules in that cycle, they've mastered 3, their accuracy is 75%. Now, for most girls, we want their accuracy to sit between around 70 to 85, 90%, somewhere in that bracket. If their accuracy is constantly sitting at 100%, then they're not actually getting the opportunity to learn from mistakes, which we know is one of the most important ways to learn, when you can go back and revisit a topic, have a look at what you did wrong, and then get another attempt in the next cycle. Or they might leave it for a couple of cycles, but within that year, they get to go back and have another go at that key mathematical concept. They don't ever move on from a key mathematical concept without being given more opportunities, a second or third try to master that. Their growth, 100% growth is mastery of a year's worth of learning. So mastering 3 modules in every cycle will put the girls at 100% growth, that they are learning a year's worth of maths, learning and understanding and mastering a year's worth of maths in a year. Now, at 4 modules, we're looking at 133% growth if we're looking at completing and mastering 4 modules. Obviously, when we're looking at our accuracy, not being quite 100%, we're still looking at mastering at least 3 modules, or maybe completing 5 modules and mastering 4. But you can see there that depending on how many modules they master in a cycle, where their growth rate is at. So what I'd like to say in summary is, again, thank you for taking an interest in your girls' learning at Santa Maria, especially when it comes to mathematics. It's really appreciated that we are all on the same page. If you have any questions specifically about what your daughter is working on, what her strengths and weaknesses are when it comes to mathematics, or what progress, what growth she has made already this year, please ask her teacher today in the interviews. They will be able to give you that information. They should have it there prepared for you. Or if you've got any other questions in regards to the program that we're using and how it works here at Santa specifically, feel free to send myself an email. I'm happy to give you a call at the end of the day or during a recess or lunch when I'm not teaching, and answer those questions for you. But we do really appreciate, again, that we are all working together to try and support your daughter to make sure that we develop strong foundations in Year 7 so that they can really optimise their success in mathematics at Santa Maria going forward. So thank you.